Okay, let's go ahead and return to action. Ms. Edgar, can you read the next docket item, please? Caught you.
Yeah. What number are we on? 31? Yeah. PZ-25-031. An application has been filed by Taylor Homes LLC for a development plan on property located at 5,000 block of Hounds Lane, Crestwood. The property is 20.31 acres and zoned R4 residential district.
Thank you, Ms. Edgar, and Ms. Barge. You'll have staff's presentation.
Yes, you get to hear someone other than Ryan speak, so it is my turn. Anna Barge, Senior Planner. Like Christy just said, this is for Taylor Homes development plan for Summit Creek Apartments at the 5,000 block of Hounds Lane. Unaddressed parcel. It's an unaddressed parcel because it hasn't been developed, so that's why we do the 5,000 block. And this is the docket number that Chrissy just read out. So the zoning is R4 residential. The land use is undeveloped, and it's 20.31 acres. And as you can see, the star is on the property, or the county line, because this is both in Jefferson and Oldham counties, and you'll see more about that in the future. For the site history, in 2007, a minor plat was approved by staff to create the 20.31 acre tract. It's like a pentagon shape, and you'll see that in your map and your staff report. And then in July of 2007, the Planning Commission reviewed and recommended approval of a zoning map amendment for that property to be rezoned from R2 to R4 for a development plan called Summit Creek. This development involved 74 townhomes or patio homes. And then the zoning map approval, and that was supposed to say PZ07, not 25, for both of those because the year was 2007. And then the zoning map amendment recommendation for approval passed on a vote of 8-2, and the development plan passed on a vote of 9-1. So then in October of 2007, the fiscal court approved the zoning map amendment from R2 to R4. And then in 2008, they updated their development plan or created a new one for a 69 unit development. And that development plan passed on a vote of 13-0. So for the case history, the pre-app meeting was back in December of last year with the TRC hearing in March of this year. The adjoining property owner notices were mailed on October 7th, and then the agenda was posted to the website on September 26th with the public notice of hearing in the Oldham area on October 9th. So this is that pentagon-shaped parcel drawn in red. And as you can see, this blue line is the county line. And you'll see that on the large plan that was provided to you as well. They have the county line noted. So this is the zoning map. All of this in this orangey tan color is R4. What's in yellow, the surrounding neighborhoods, is R2. And then this is also R4 over here, with the corner being zoned C3. The Oldham County future land use map predicts that the use of this tract will be institutional. I believe that is because if you look at this property, this is, when you head down 22, this is a cemetery. So I don't know why over the years, even though there are previously approved plans for developments on this property, why it still remained institutional. Cannot answer that. I was not here. And then the proposed plan meets all the standards in the Oldham County zoning ordinance. I included the TRC comments in your packet. For the notes, the applicant has submitted a development plan for 196 apartments. The parcel is situated in both Oldham and Jefferson counties. Of the 196 apartments, 156 are located in Oldham County. The apartment complex will consist of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments, a clubhouse, and a pool. There will be 8 residential buildings ranging from 2 to 4 floors with a maximum building height of 45 feet. According to zoning ordinance section 090-020, the maximum intensity is 16 units per acre when sewers are present, and there are sewers present on this property or available for this property. The dwelling units per acre for this plan is 9.65. The Oldham County Board of Education determined that the maximum number of units per year is 75. Only the children living in the apartments situated in Oldham County can go to Oldham County schools. And if you have any other questions for that, we have Michael Williams here to that you can ask from the school board questions. So the applicant is not requesting any waivers or variances, and the county has met with the applicant to discuss intersection improvements. And I'll let our county engineer, Jim Silliman, expand on that. So this is the plan, this like I said, pentagon-shaped property. So with the entrance, this is Hounds Lane right here. So the entrance will be on Hounds Lane, and there'll be the clubhouse with the pool, and then 2 proposed units there. These are the 2 proposed units that are in Jefferson County, and then the 4 other buildings. And then I drew this red line on top of their red line to really delineate the Oldham and Jefferson County portions. So I took some pictures. They're not really that useful because it's basically like a wooded, overgrown bush, or whatever word I'm looking for, kind of area. So it's not anything much to look at, like as far as from the road. LG&E was out there working that day on the power lines. So in summary, the development plan request is that the applicant is requesting approval of the development plan for the Summit Creek Apartments on 20.31 acres. For the binding elements, the first 3 are the standard ones. The approval applies to the plan presented at the October 28th, 2025 Oldham County Planning Commission hearing. Number 2, there shall be no changes to the plan without review by the Oldham County Planning Commission and Engineer's Office. 3, the plan must comply with all established federal, state, and county ordinances and requirements and comply with all necessary easement restrictions at the time of construction plan approval. 4, 75 units per year are allowed per the Oldham County Board of Education for the Oldham County portion of the development. And then number 5, this was based on discussions, and I'll let Jim discuss this further. The applicant shall contribute $300,000 towards off-site improvements at Hounds Lane and Highway 22 intersection for traffic infrastructure impacted by the development, and shall be payable to the Oldham County Fiscal Court and due prior to any construction plan approval contingent on a larger county road project. If the county road project cannot be initiated to meet the developer's schedule, the developer will construct the turn lane independently.
All right, Mr. Silliman.
So, and Anna mentioned that you have the TRC comments in your staff packet. Most of my comments are very similar to that. I'll kind of brush through the stormwater ones, and then I'll park on the traffic a little bit more. But based on the site disturbance area, of course, an Oldham County stormwater management and erosion control permit will be required. The applicant would submit their construction plans to my office for review of those plans in order to get that permit. They'll also need to get a KYR10 permit from the state for the greater than 1 area of disturbance. Based on the apparent impact to jurisdictional streams and inline detention that's planned on this preliminary plan, they'd also likely need to provide Army Corps of Engineer and Kentucky Division of Water 401 and 404 permits. And we typically require they provide those to our office during that construction plan review process. Additionally, as is standard for contemporary development, we will require that they encompass the detention basin with a drainage easement and file a stormwater maintenance agreement that would be recorded with the county clerk. And we typically require that be done before we release the erosion control surety for this project. Now, when we get into traffic, looking at the number of units being proposed, there is more than 100 peak hour trips generated. However, when you look at the letter of our Oldham County subdivision regulations, they would also be required to show that there's 200 or 2,000 ADT on the street that they release those cars to, and there's really not on Hounds Lane. There's only about, I think our measure was about 1,300. So again, by that regulation, they are not required to provide a traffic impact study or a traffic assessment. However, understanding that the intersection of 22 and Hounds Lane is challenging, There's a skew, a horizontal skew. There's also, when you look to the left, or well, to the west, there's a vertical curve that challenges the sight distance. And so they recognize, we recognize that a study was needed. And more than likely, you know, the majority of we think the majority of the 112 trips, peak hour trips, would go that direction and be on Kentucky Highway 22. So that was provided. If you read that, it does indicate the requirement of a left turn lane. We agree with that. What Anna Barge mentioned in that last binding element is we've had numerous discussions, lengthy discussions with the applicant about how to address the other issues. KYTC provided an email through the applicant that did indicate that they would require the left turn lane, but because the vertical curve issue for sight distance is an existing issue, and the skewed intersection are existing issues, they're not requiring those be included in the improvements. So we start looking at this from a standpoint of, could there possibly be a cost share project where the county recognizes we'd like to improve that intersection. To do so, to fix that skew, would likely require some right-of-way acquisition, which typically a private development doesn't have the ability to acquire. So making it a public-private partnership, we can potentially get that right-of-way to make that horizontal improvement to the skewed intersection, as well as through all the construction, maybe trying to address the vertical curve. So ideally, if we can get a project going with the county to address the issues at the intersection with the road, then the applicant, based on our previous conversations, and I'll let them verify this or correct me, and if we're incorrect, they would contribute $300,000 towards that project. If we can't get that project going in a timely fashion to when they need, to have the left turn to address their construction, they would just build a left turn on their own. So again, ideally, we'll try and get a larger project, but they have committed to contributing towards that left turn. And thinking about the left turn and the traffic, I did some research on the collision data, and I thought it was really interesting. If I can find where I hid it for myself. There we go. And obviously, I think it's useful for you to be aware of. Just searching, we typically search the Kentucky State Police website. They've got an excellent database of collisions. Search it for a period of 5 years, and you can see these pins are the 23 collisions that have been recorded at that intersection over that 3-year or 5-year period. Sorry, it's a 5-year period. Some of the description, there's actually a lot more data included, but I tried to focus on just what was important to us, showing the number of injuries, what the collision was, where it occurred. There were 3 that you saw on that chart that were really outside the area of interest, not at that intersection. So let's scratch those out, and we're down to 20 collisions. This other one was, not only was it a rear end collision, but it was, it seemed to be on a little outside so it was mapped correctly. I think we eliminate that one also from concern. Single vehicle accidents, really can't do much about that. Can't stop deer from crossing the road. It's a little bit more challenging to stop someone from driving off the road and hitting a utility pole. So let's cross those out. And then the rear end collisions, I'm focusing on those also, including one that was previously noted, because those appear to be the issue that could be addressed by the left turn lane. Because if you've got someone right now stopping to turn left and they're getting rear-ended, well, if the applicant provides that left turn lane, there's a significant improvement here. And so now we're left with the remaining 6 collisions, only 2 with injury. So the intent of this is just to show you what the improvement of that left turn lane would provide. So if you have any questions, I'm here.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Silliman. Anything else from staff?
I have one question.
Yeah.
In that study, was there anything looked at where you have opposing turn, you have a Highway 22 trying to turn in to Hounds Lane, while at the same time you have Hounds Lane trying to turn into 22.
Yeah, so that is at an unsignalized intersection. That's a common concern, and we did look at that, yes. In the traffic study, it wasn't analyzed specifically. It's just something that we recognize. And we observed that just several hundred feet down, several hundred yards down to the east at the Orchard Grass Boulevard intersection, you've got just that situation where you've got an unsignalized left in, and you can have a left out. So there are those situations, and at this point, it's not. I mean, we're not recommending a traffic signal here, and we do recognize that does exist. But yes, you're right; it can be challenging if people are not looking far enough.
Okay, further questions? Ms. Nasser?
Okay. You mentioned if the first scenario could be done in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
What would that?
Well, it's really based on their schedule. If we can, they're going to have a schedule to build this, and at what point the left turn's required. If we can meet that schedule, then we can make a project happen. If not, they'll put the left turn in. So, and it's a little more challenging for the. I'll defend the county and the public. Sometimes we get criticized for taking a long time to build jobs, but because of the requirements we have of bidding procedures and acquisition of right-of-way, it just does take us longer. So.
All right, further questions? Seeing none, all right, we'll move into a presentation from applicant, Mr. Swansburg. Want to go ahead and get your team sworn?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Mike Swansburg. Swansburg and Smith, 117 West Main Street here in LaGrange. And I've got with me today representatives both of Mendel Scott, which are the engineers on this project. Kathleen Linares and her team are here. And I also have the developers in this case, Mr. John Waits and Ms. Heather Keeling, who are all here and may end up at some point talking. So I think we'll just all go ahead and get sworn in just in case. And we'll go from there, sir.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
And again, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Ms. Edgar, Mr. Fisher, Mr. Baxter, good afternoon. I know you all have been here a long time today, so I'm going to try to run through this this presentation, give you the information we think you need in order to, from our perspective at least, approve this particular request. However, my hope also is that to the extent that there are any questions or concerns raised as part of this particular request, that we talk about those as we're going along, or that I potentially get to address them on the front end. That is my goal, of course, but I'm also happy to answer any questions on the back end in the event that those do exist. So I do have the pleasure of representing Taylor Homes. That's a good Welsh word, is my understanding, correct? Family name. It's actually a good family name. So we are here for that purpose for this particular request today. And let's talk about that request. And Mr. Fisher may be able to run through this whole presentation on my behalf, but I'm going to do it anyway, just because I'm that predictable. But the applicant, Taylor Homes, does come here before the Oldham County. I did put Taylor there just for everyone's benefit. Seeking approval of a preliminary plan for a high-end development to convert the property that you've already seen on this map to this. Now, I will just let you know, I just got this last night, so I didn't get a chance to send this to you all, but it is in the presentation for you all to have this. This is a rendition that the engineers were able to put together last night to give you a better visual of what this particular proposal looks like. And what this is a new Summit Creek apartment complex located, as we've already talked about, off Hounds Lane, along the Oldham County, Jefferson County border, without the need, I need to add, for any waivers, any variances, or any modifications to the existing Oldham County zoning map. So there won't be any requests for today for those particular types of what I would call discretionary efforts on the part of the commission. So let's talk a little bit about the proposal. You've already seen this particular one with a nice little red line there signifying where Jefferson County and Oldham County meet. But this proposal, as you've already heard, consists of 196 total units located on 20.3 acres in both Oldham County and Jefferson County, that border again shown in red. And in the Oldham County section, which is relevant to you all, is the much larger of the two, consists of approximately 15.6 acres. It is currently zoned R4, as you've already heard, and will include 156 of those total units, or approximately, and my math is a little different, which is why I'm a lawyer, not a mathematician or anything like that, approximately 9.97 dwelling units per acre. Just to give you all a means of comparison, property with sanitary sewers that we're talking about, which will be available, and I will talk about here in a minute on this particular property that is zoned R4 in this county, can have a maximum density of 16 dwelling units per acre. So we are actually well below the threshold for the maximum allowable density on the land that is zoned R4 here in Oldham County. Guiding standards. Again, I'm a lawyer. I always like to talk about the guiding standards, the basis upon which we believe you all may be able to approve this particular request. Initially, subdivision regulations, section 3.2 provides that this commission, quote, may approve the preliminary plat at any steps in which they are involved. That gives you at least the authority to make approvals such as this. Let's talk a little bit about what those standards are, though not exhaustive. I'd like to highlight for you all Oldham County subdivision regulations, which is what we're going to borrow for this particular purposes, sections 1.2A through K, and it sets forth the following guidelines when considering subdivision development like this particular project within Oldham County. And one of those I want to highlight for you first is one, to guide future growth and development patterns in Oldham County in accordance with the comprehensive plan. I understand that the comprehensive plan, I'm well aware that the comprehensive plan is currently being revised. We believe, of course, that it meets the current standards. I would argue it probably meets the future standards on top of that. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan and how it comports with some of those areas in the comprehensive plan here in a minute. But I want to talk about number 2 as well, and that is to protect and conserve the value of land throughout Oldham County and the value of the buildings and improvements upon the land, and to minimize the conflicts among the uses of land and buildings, right? That's another goal at the end of the day that you all will have to consider as part of your consideration here. And then number 3, what I would submit is to provide the most beneficial relationship between the developing uses of land and buildings and the circulation of traffic. We've already heard a little bit about traffic. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here in a second. Throughout Oldham County, having particular regard to the avoidance of congestion in the streets and highways and the pedestrian traffic movements appropriate to the various uses of land and buildings, and to provide for the proper location and width of streets and building lines. So again, there's already been a lot of discussion about transportation. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it again, but that is part of the consideration that you all would like to utilize or should utilize when considering projects like this. Let's talk about the comprehensive plan. We all know it. We all love it. There it is. I actually animated it this time because they don't like when I do the stagnant version. It's even bubbled. I changed it to look a little different. I wanted to make it more exciting than it really is. I apologize to everybody for that purpose. However, that's the comprehensive plan cover there. So let's talk about that comprehensive plan. Land use objective LU-1-1. This is one of the component parts of the comprehensive plan that we believe this particular project meets, ensuring that future land uses are compatible with surrounding land uses. Number 2, I would submit land use objective LU-1-3 sub 1, which encourages development to locate in areas with existing infrastructure and services before moving into less developed areas of the county. Let's get out of land use objectives. And let's talk about transportation objective, T-1-5. That's another area coordinating improvements to the transportation system with land use decisions to ensure maintenance of an adequate level of service. Again, that's part of the comprehensive plan. When we're talking about land development, to the extent possible, you would like to have land use decisions contemplate and potentially resolve transportation issues. And we believe, and I would submit to you that this, in fact, is one of those particular projects. Number 4, community facilities and services objective, CF-2-2, which requires sanitary sewer systems to be adequate prior to the issuance of building permits. We do talk about sewer systems here because we are in a zone, in a location within Oldham County where sewers are available. We want to make sure that they comport with all the requirements that are necessary to make sure that those are adequate, and we believe they are. And then finally, environment objective E-2-1 sub 1, which requires plans to promote tree preservation and to increase the urban and suburban tree canopy as part of the process. I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these as I go along here, but what I just highlighted are a few areas that's not exhaustive, but these are areas that I highlight within the comprehensive plan that we believe this particular proposal comports with. Compatibility with surrounding development. Let's talk about that first. So I gave you a little bit of a perspective by zooming back out to kind of see where this land is located right now. As we've talked about a couple times, it's located on that Oldham County, Jefferson County border, but I'd want to give you a perspective of where it is located if you have not seen it from overhead. The Oldham County Comprehensive Plan encourages infill development. I've mentioned that in other projects before to you all. You all are well aware of this particular means of trying to develop in this area. And it does, the comprehensive plan basically says that you should, quote, utilize the existing service infrastructure and lessen the economic cost of expanding utility lines and transportation networks. That's on page 51 of the current comprehensive plan. The proposed Summit Creek complex, what we are talking about here, meets this requirement by permitting the utilization of existing infrastructure, including electric, water, sewer lines already utilizing by multiple developments, both in Oldham County and Jefferson County, that either are immediately adjacent to this particular, and I mean adjacent right across Hounds Lane, or literally bordering it, or that are nearby this property. Again, this is not out in the middle of a farm somewhere. This is in the heart, well, actually right on the edge, quite frankly, of Oldham County, but in the heart of an area that is already well developed in this part of the Commonwealth between these two counties. So we're not talking about taking an area that has horses running on it, for example. We're not talking about an area that's got cornfields in it. We're talking about an area right now that is sitting in the middle of a bunch of residential developments and, quite frankly, a cemetery that is already there and should be developed from our perspective. Environmental impact and the use of sanitary sewers. So again, a lot of folks concerned about environmental impact. And that's a good question to ask anytime you've got a subdivision. Are you just going to bulldoze everything and put up a bunch of what we might call plastic homes for the sake and make it an eyesore here in the county? That's not what is going to be proposed here. That is not the plan for this Summit Creek apartment complex. What Taylor Homes is going to do is they're going to provide, and it's already, if you see it in the plan, it's actually outlined in the development plan itself. We talk about a tree preservation plan that will be provided to staff prior to beginning any construction on the site. One thing I do want to mention, by the way, that is, I think, pretty unique to this proposal versus other ones that we might have seen before is that this proposal, in many ways, has to meet both the requirements for Jefferson County and Oldham County in a lot of ways. And in this one, we've actually got a mesh of the two regulations to ensure that we are meeting the requirements for both in some form or fashion. And one of those is going to be a tree canopy preservation requirement, both in Jefferson County and in Oldham County. And that is, in fact, what the developer is going to do here. As you can see, this particular rendition, I think in many ways, really highlights the purpose of showing you the amount of green space that is going to be utilized in this particular area. What Taylor Homes is going to do is obviously utilize construction fencing around areas to be preserved, which will remain in place until all construction is complete. You can actually see that on your development plan. It looks to appear like a bunch of boxes connected by lines that surround some areas that are actually existing trees, existing forest area, for lack of a better term, that they will continue to maintain as part of the duration of the construction phase of this project. And in doing so, the proposal anticipates the preservation of much of the existing tree canopy, which is shown on these two circles to the right here on this particular map. So, like I said, as part of this, we're actually we're wanting to preserve as much as we can of the existing tree canopy of this property as part of this development at the end of the day. And that is part of the plan here. And quite frankly, as is really evidenced here on this particular plan, Taylor Homes does expect to plant numerous trees throughout the complex consistent with Division 300 of the Oldham County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. That's your landscaping ordinance that does require certain types of landscaping use, trees, brush, bushes, for example, all that good stuff that makes a development attractive in many ways, or it's going to be utilized. But Taylor Homes is, in fact, going to be utilizing tree planting to the extent possible throughout the development. And in addition to that, as you can see on here, it does expect to try to border or line the borders of those areas that are not fully covered by a tree canopy already in some way, shape, or form with additional landscaping, just to ensure that there is some separation between itself and the properties that are directly next to it. Of course, this area being Hounds Lane here as well. One thing I do also want to point out just for this benefit is that the way this development is actually designed, and Mr. Wade's pointed this out to me, and I'd forgotten to talk about it early or read it in here, but I want to talk about it, is Hounds Lane is right here. And what they're actually proposing to doing is to push back the majority of the buildings behind the canopy here so that you're not looking as much at a number of high density apartment complex right off the road. There actually would be a buffer between the road and those particular buildings that you would see here. So you're not, again, just not going to have a whole bunch of buildings right on Hounds Lane, for example, as you're driving by, or that you might see right off of KY22 here to the south of it. They do anticipate putting a buffer and try to push all those buildings back so that there would be some separation between them and the general public that might be going by this location on any given day. Sanitary sewers. We are utilizing sewers as part of this particular project. They will be connected, if you may have already read about this, it was discussed at TRC, to the South Oldham Water Quality Treatment Plant via sewers, which are shown here on the right. This is the connection here that goes down through this space out here and then goes out this way. There would be a proposed pump station here. And then, like I said, it would connect out here to go to that treatment plant here in Oldham County. So again, they're unlike some other developments that might be out further into the county where you've got a septic question. That question is not here. There are going to be sewers as part of this development. And it will comply, of course, with all the standards set forth in the Louisville and Jefferson County Metropolitan Sewer District, MSD, design manual, as well as the requirements set forth in Oldham County Stormwater Retention Ordinance. We already talked about before, Mr. Silman talked about this. That will be a requirement when they go to permitting, assuming you all vote in favor of this, that will be a permitting question that they will have to address at that time in terms of stormwater retention, and they'll have to make sure that they meet all of those requirements on top of the other requirements that already exist. Transportation. Let's talk about the big question that came up that Mr. Silman and Ms. Barge both talked about before, the impact on Hounds Lane. So if you notice on the map before, this particular tract does not border KY22. It actually sits off Hounds Lane, somewhat off of KY22. So this is not a situation where you might have a development literally on KY22 in a traditional sense where you're talking about how do you get in and out on that front. But as we've already talked about, there is that question of the intersection here between Hounds Lane and KY22 that has been a source of a lot of discussion since this project was first proposed. So just to kind of go back, and Mr. Silman talked about this back in February 13th, the traffic engineer that was hired by the developer released a final traffic impact study. So again, there wasn't a requirement that a traffic impact study be done, but after discussing the matter and hearing some comments and feedback at TRC and discussing again with the staff, we decided that that was the best way to go forward and address the situation so we could get the appropriate information to make a determination about what to do about that troublesome intersection. And so a traffic impact study was done. I do highlight, of course, that there's not a requirement that there be turn lanes on Hounds Lane itself necessarily going into the complex, but there was a discussion about turn lanes off of KY22. So what ended up happening as part of that? So we again talk about with P&Z staff, the concerns were raised about that. It is a busy thoroughfare, as we all know, that runs from the Springhurst-Norton Commons section of Jefferson County in toward Crestwood and vice versa. So let's talk about what was done to address those concerns, because I want to highlight, as Mr. Silman said, about this public-private partnership, there was a lot of discussion between the developer and government agencies, whether it was Oldham County or whether it was the city of Orchard Grass Hills, to address this concern, because it was a concern that was raised. And because I would argue that this developer in many ways wants to be a good corporate citizen and partner with those agencies to come up with an excellent solution to this problem that they did not create, that none of us actually created. It was created a long time ago and unfortunately has not been addressed until now. But that is what we're going to try to do here. So let's talk first about what they did with the city of Orchard Grass Hills. So the developer actually went and met with the leadership, the elected leadership at Orchard Grass Hills after the technical review committee meeting. And they sat down to kind of talk about one issue that they wanted to talk about was the speed limit that exists there on KY22. So if you've traveled that section of KY22, you know that in Jefferson County, it's about 45 miles an hour, and then it hits 55 right there before the intersection and is 55 into Oldham County until you basically get to Crestwood where the speed limit goes down. So what there was a discussion to do in order to kind of help move this process forward and hopefully address some of the concerns about the intersection was there was some effort to see whether or not the city would be willing to reach out to the transportation cabinet and ask them to do an assessment and lower that speed limit, at least at the section where Hounds Lane is located, so that we can hopefully better address those issues, right? You can't stop people from speeding, but to the extent that you've got most people being law-abiding citizens, if the speed limit is lowered, most people will at least abide by that and actually reduce their speed. So the city of Orchard Grass Hills, as a result of that meeting, through the good work of their elected leaders, adopted a resolution on September 11th of 2025 and sent to KYTC, and I've got a copy here on the screen, sent to KYTC this resolution asking them to reduce the speed limit along that section of KY22 from 55 down to 45 miles per hour. My understanding as of today, that request remains pending. KYTC is still considering whether to do that, but it does impact potentially the solution for the intersection. If the speed limit goes down, it does impact what can be done to address that intersection. And that was an effort that was done between an action that was taken between the developer and the city of Orchard Grass Hills. They get all the credit to ensure that this speed limit is done to protect their own citizens. So I want to make sure that they also get acknowledged for the effort that they undertook to make sure that this also happens, at least in terms of addressing the transportation concern. Work with KYTC. Again, we didn't stop with the city of Orchard Grass Hills. We talked with the transportation cabinet, as already been discussed. And because KY22 is a state-owned highway, Taylor Holmes' engineers reached out to Jason Richardson, who's the transportation engineer supervisor for District 5, which is this location where the project is located, to try to reach a solution as part of this. It's already been referenced, but I'll just spell it out for you. In an email from Mr. Richardson to the engineers dated July 1st, 2025, Mr. Richardson stated that KYTC would require some road widening and a left turn lane off KY Highway 22 to sign off on this proposal. In other words, that was a requirement for them to be comfortable with this proposal, was that they indicated that the developer should do some road widening and a left turn lane there on KY 22. They also confirmed, however, in that same email that KYTC would not require Taylor Homes to regrade Kentucky Highway 22 and improve the sight distance at that intersection because, as Mr. Silman's already said, they were existing problems affecting a local road. They were already there. They wasn't created by this developer in some way. There's actually a lot of concern raised, or not concern, a lot of statements made, and you all can correct me if I'm wrong, about the right-of-way issue that also exists there, and that there's limited right-of-way in that section of KY 22, and how you go about addressing that intersection is going to be a situation for the county, hopefully in partnership with the developer, as I'll talk about here in a second. We'll address with the state as well, but there's a lot of issues that are going on with that intersection that aren't necessarily within the control of the county, aren't necessarily within the control of the developer, in some ways aren't with the control of the state. And so there's been, again, it's a collaborative effort to try to figure out a way to address this situation. So that was a communication back and forth between the developer and the transportation cabinet to address this issue. Let's talk about what they did with Oldham County. So at the request of the staff, and we've already talked about this, but I want to reiterate this, the engineers put together a preliminary cost estimate. So one of the conversations we had was, well, what would it cost to do a revamping of the intersection, not just including a turn lane, but also, I believe, some grading and address maybe the sight distance. And I believe that's that was some discussion and just what would that potentially cost. And I used very approximate numbers, by the way. There was much more detail in the engineer's proposal, but the estimate came out to approximately $494,000, and that was sent over to the county staff for them to evaluate and take a look at. So of that total, and again, I'm using a rough estimate, the road widening and left turn lane amounted to a little less than $250,000. So of the amount that was estimated to do a bigger project for that particular intersection, the turn lane component that KYTC was going to require the developer to put forward was about $250,000 worth of work. Why is that important? Because during a meeting that we had just last week on October 23rd, and has already been talked about, Taylor Homes, working with them, we offered essentially 2 alternative proposals for consideration. This is what we all kind of put forward with this. I said Taylor Homes offered. They did in many ways, but this, again, I don't want to detract from the fact that this was a collaboration and a good conversation between all the parties. So if Oldham County wanted to handle the road improvements independently, wanted Taylor Homes to do it independently, i.e., if the county could not do this as part of a broader project, then Taylor Homes would go ahead and handle the turn lane, as we talked about, for that $250,000, consistent with state regulations, in order to make that turn lane happen that KYTC wants them to do. However, if the county was able to move forward with the broader project, and I flipped backward what was discussed a minute ago, but basically, if Oldham County takes on the bigger project and is able to move forward with that, then Taylor Homes would actually contribute $300,000 directly to Oldham County for that effort. So what Taylor Homes is willing to do, if the county is able to move forward, and again, we're not pushing the county, but if the county hopefully is able to do this, Taylor Homes is actually willing to put more money into the intersection than what KYTC would require them to do as part of this particular plan. I would like to reiterate, this is one of those few times where we've got a great public-private arrangement where the developer in this case wants to not only have a development, but wants to assist the government body, the political body, the county, to get a situation addressed that it will impact, but in some ways did not create. This is I would argue, a good corporate citizen effort to figure out a way to make this work. And again, I give all the credit to the county as well for trying to come up with a way to make this work, and also be willing to talk about a way to make this work on their end as well. But that is the offer that Taylor Homes is willing to make, is that, yes, there will be the cost to do what KYTC asked them to do at $250,000, but if the county can do it too, they'll actually pay $300,000 toward that effort. I just reiterate there again, Taylor Homes has agreed to partner with them and to front significant costs to improve the existing transportation issue and furtherance of its development. So it recognizes the impact that it's going to have, but it's also going to put its money where its mouth is. And they're going to try to work with the county to make sure that it gets addressed to the extent possible. So in summary, again, respectfully ask the Planning Commission to give final approval of the preliminary plan for this apartment complex without, again, the need for any waivers, no variances, no amendments to the Oldham County zoning map or any regulations, on the basis that the plan comports with the subdivision regulations, because the plan, among other things, 1, adheres to the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan's admonitions to A, ensure compatibility with surrounding land uses. We talk about that infill development, utilizing existing infrastructure, which is, again, also B, encouraging that development in those areas with existing infrastructure. C, to coordinate improvements to the transportation system in conjunction with land use decisions. There was about 7 months worth of discussions back and forth between the developer and various state entities or governmental entities about the transportation system issue. And this was a collaborative effort, again, to come to where we are today with our proposal. D, require adequate sanitary sewer systems when appropriate. We've already talked about that. And then E, promote tree preservation when possible. Again, the developer isn't going to simply just bulldoze a slate of land and just leave it bare and exposed to put up a bunch of high-end apartment complexes without having any tree canopy or any other green space. It's going to incorporate green space and that tree canopy in the proposal as well. 2, to protect and conserve the value of land throughout Oldham County and the value of the buildings and improvements upon the land, and to minimize the conflicts among the uses of land and buildings. And then 3, to provide the most beneficial relationship between the developing uses of land and buildings and the circulation of traffic throughout Oldham County, particularly that intersection we talked about, having particular regard to the avoidance of congestion in the streets and highways and the pedestrian traffic movements appropriate to the various uses of land and buildings, and to provide for the proper location and width of streets and building lines. We would submit to you that all of these bases within the subdivision regulations and the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan are a sufficient basis for you all to approve this project. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I have nothing else to present, but I'm also open to any questions that you all might have, as well as the engineer and the developer in this case. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Swansburg. Anyone else here present wishing to speak in favor of this application? Speaking in favor? We'll get your name and address for the record, and then we'll get you sworn in, okay?
Yeah, my name's Bob Dalton, 7006 Poplar Hill Court, Crestwood. Can you put that map back up? That tell me which I think it's the one that said the tree cover.
Yeah. Right there.
Yeah, okay.
Want the arrows, want the circles or no?
If I can use the mouse, I'll be okay. Yeah, good. Cool. All right, good.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I am on city council with Orchard Grass and also a resident. My home backs up. See if I can get it. My home is right here on Hounds Lane. We're not opposed to the apartments. We just, a couple of things that we wanted to reiterate. Want to make sure that the sewer system that you're having is not going to tie into ours. There is a lift station that's in the corner here, and a previous developer wanted to put patio homes there, 96 patio homes, and they were going to tie into our existing lift station, which can't handle what we have right now. So I just want to reiterate, make sure that you're going to have your own lift station and tie into, I'm assuming Hit Lane is where that's going to go, back to the treatment center. I've had those pumps go down before, and it has backed up raw sewage into the sink in my garage. And I'm basically 2 houses away from that. So that's not a pretty sight. I don't want to do it again.
Good afternoon. Kathy Linares, Mendel Scott, 5151 Jefferson Boulevard, 40219. And the lift station, or the he's talking about, like behind his home on the end of that cul-de-sac, is not where we're going to be tying in. There is a line that actually runs on Poplar Hill Court, or Drive, that we'll be tying into. And it goes down further. And that has been reviewed and approved by MSD, subject to us getting that connection over there. So, but there is, we believe, availability for that connection.
Thank you.
From my personal standpoint and my neighbors along Hounds Lane there, we're requesting that just leave the tree line in that's from here. Just leave that in there. They're full-grown trees. There's lots of birds, animals, all that kind of stuff. I know in other areas they've cleared all that, built a mound, put some trees on it, and we would just rather have that just that natural buffer that's already there. It's tall enough. We can't see anything when they get their buildings and so forth. And that's just a request that we have. And also, no government housing, no Section 8, none of that is going to be in there? No.
Hang on. We're going to get Mr. Swansburg back to the microphone to respond to those things, okay? Let's get your name and address for the record.
John Waits, 1949 Championship Boulevard, Franklin, Tennessee. Oldham County, 1973 graduate. So anyway, that area along Hounds Lane there is it's pretty young growth. So there's a lot of brushy stuff. So I think we would elect to leave, not touch anything that's large, but just clean out the brush a little bit. So if people wanted to do walking paths or something like that through there, we would attempt to just clean out the underbrush.
Thank you. All right. And you had one more question. Let's have Mr. Swansburg an opportunity to respond.
There's no Section 8 or government housing or anything going to be in there, right? No government assistance. Okay. The next concern.
Hang on. For the record, that was market. Did everyone get that? Okay.
It would
Thank
be
you.
market. No Section A, would be market pricing.
The other one is the transportation. We're concerned with just the traffic. Their entrance is going to be across from Poplar Hill, straight across from ours. Currently, the traffic with me living on that. I keep track of this quite a bit. You've got lighters going through there. You've got Pierce Concrete. Zeppa's is going through Kingsbury. When Ford is storing trucks back there, they're averaging about 120 trucks an hour go up and down that road. I retired from Ford, so I watch this and have friends over there. Also, we've got all the dump trucks from the construction that's going out on the Waterson 71, the VA. They're running dump trucks up and down through there, dumping somewhere back there. And also, there's a lot of gooseneck trailers, a lot of traffic with that currently, where they are hauling construction debris back and they're dumping it in the mine underground just to fill the mine in. So, and then we're going to add another 196 homes there on top of it. So Hounds Lane is just extremely busy. And I know Lighters and the rest of them are in Pierce. They're all concerned also with that. And with that strange angle, when you're trying to turn right onto Highway 22, all the trucks have to go real wide into the other lane in order to get out there. And we'd like to see, as a city of Orchard Grass, Poplar Hill, just for one thing, we'd like to see a light there, a traffic light, or if they could straighten that corner up. But it gets difficult there when you're trying to turn. Adding a left-hand turn lane that is coming from which direction? Is it coming from the Jefferson County? Okay. I'm wondering, because the trucks currently right now have to cross over that lane in order to turn. We've got a few semis, but most of them are all the dump trucks, the concrete trucks, and that kind of stuff. But I think that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Dalton.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? All right. Seeing none. Is there anyone present wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Please. Let's get your name and address for the record, please.
James Russell, 9401 Jonathan Place, Crestwood.
And we'll get you sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I guess my biggest concerns are his with regards to traffic. That's a county road. It wasn't never designed to handle the kind of traffic it's already handling. So you add another 196 homes to that disaster, and you've got more problems. So from a safety concern, I think it'd be irresponsible for the Planning Commission to approve this today. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this application? All right, seeing none, we'll move into questions from the commission. Commissioners, ask questions. Mr. Douglas.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a chance to talk to the school capacity? Do we have testimony yet on that?
We had presentation from staff, but we did not talk directly to Mr. Williams.
Do we have him come
Would
up?
you like to have him come up?
Sure.
Please.
Go ahead, Christy, because I wasn't here earlier.
Right. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Douglas.
Did you do a school capacity for this development?
What?
Were you able to provide us a school capacity form for this?
So you do not have a school capacity form because I was trying to get it on our board agenda, but our board agenda, because we were on spring break last week, got moved up 2 weeks. So it will come to you all in November, but the deal with that is because it is an apartment complex, that is a set number. It doesn't vary. So that's why I wasn't utterly concerned about making sure that you all had the capacity numbers.
I'm going to let you know that we have something in the back.
Yes, and that's the that's
the
very
closest
close.
thing, but it hasn't been approved.
It's not been signed off by the board of the superintendent yet. No, sir.
Okay. And if it was, what would be the capacity if you were going to recommend it to the school board?
It would still be 75 because it's the apartments that's the policy between the county and the school board that we approve 75 when they are multifamily.
Okay. That's all I have. That's 75 per year.
Okay, Mr. Douglas, anything else? Okay, who else has questions? Ms. Kraus? Oh, come right ahead.
Sorry, just on the matter of the education, I see that the board is granted up to 75 units per year for the build-out. Do you guys have a phased build-out in the Oldham County portion that would still work?
So the phasing of the construction would be consistent with what the school board limits in terms of 75 per year. That's a requirement that we would follow. So in terms of phasing in, the maximum number of units that could be constructed in any year would be 75, consistent with the school board's statement or their position on that. So in terms of phasing, there hasn't been. I don't know if it's been fully developed in terms of construction plan per se, but that would be the requirement, and that's what we would follow is that requirement.
Okay, and do you guys have a model yet for how you're going to disclose on your lease if they're Oldham or Jefferson County students?
I don't know if you all have
I know it's a
drawn
little
any
bit
kind
more
of resident lease agreement, but we're more than aware. Mr. Williams made that clear at TRC, and we would follow that. It would, if you live in Oldham County, you get to go Oldham County. If you live in those 2 Jefferson County units here, you don't get to go Oldham County schools.
So we would start in Oldham and then work our way.
Can we get you a little bit closer to the mic? Thank you.
So yeah, the phasing of the development would only be the 75 a year for Oldham County, but we would phase the 2 buildings in Jefferson kind of in between that as part of the phasing.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Okay, Ms. Kraus?
Just to reiterate, they'd have to follow whatever regulations for the Jefferson County side that are imposed by the Jefferson County's commensurate planning group.
So the 2 units
ma'am.
in Jefferson County, they go to Jefferson County School, is that correct?
That's it.
Okay.
You live in Jefferson County, you go to JCPS.
Ms. Kraus?
Okay, so twice you referred to high-end. So can you define what a high-end complex would look like?
Well, that would be commensurate with Bishop Place, right? Want to come on up and talk about it? Just to get an understanding.
So that really, it will have a pool, a clubhouse. They will not be what I would consider luxurious apartments. They would just be market priced apartment complex with a fully amenitized with a clubhouse and a pool. I don't know if that answers your question.
And the clubhouse is used for people can rent it that live there, or is it a gym or?
There would be a workout. Usually there's a small fitness facility within that. An on-site leasing person would be in there. And just maybe the maintenance person for the facility.
Okay. And then that green space that's kind of in the middle there, or a little over from the middle, that had a red circle around it before, because we didn't know about the trees along Hounds Lane there at that time. So I know some of these buildings are 4 stories and plus a lower level for parking, I guess. So
that was one building. We can't go over, I think it's 40, 45 feet, whatever the code is. We can't go over that height. So if that's only going to be 3 stories with a big pitch roof, then it would have to be redesigned. But
so that green space is going to be high enough to cover that from the road.
Absolutely. Everything you see that's older growth stuff.
Okay.
The stuff that was mentioned by Mr. Dalton is that used to be completely cleared out and mowed and taken care of by the cemetery, and it's just got some young growth, but it's mostly bushy stuff that's out there. It needs to be cleaned up.
Okay. And then my last question, the Jefferson County portion of the apartments, will they be going into that same sewer system, or will they be going
Yes.
into a different sewer
The
system?
same sewer system.
Okay.
Handled by MSD.
Okay.
Okay, further questions, Ms. Kraus? Okay, who else? Mr. Douglas?
You speak to the engineer, please. I know that you were asked a question about the pump station and the concern that one of the residents had across the street. But on it says proposed private pump station.
Yes.
Is it proposed? Is that a new one going there?
No, it's a
from you guys?
proposed private pump station to serve this development.
Okay. Do you know if you have to get an easement from MSD for that? Or, yeah,
We'll probably
MSD?
have to put it within an easement on our property. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because I didn't see on this, and I guess it would be later on when you do the plat.
I know that
How
the
much
sewer
easement?
system, the sewer lines themselves will be in an easement, and I'm not sure if I think, that's a good question. I am actually not an engineer myself. I work for an engineering company. I'm actually a landscape architect and a land use planner.
So you're not the engineer?
No, I'm not. But I mean, I work with this company every day, and this is my job. They typically are within an easement.
So we're looking at probably whatever.
The actual lines. I don't think the private pump station has to be in an easement itself, but it will be because it's going to be maintained privately. But the actual lines that come through there will be in an easement.
Okay. All right. Fair enough answer.
All right, Mr. Douglas, anything additional? Hang on. Okay, Mr. Swansburg. No, the name of your landscape, right?
Kathy Linares, Linares.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Davis, you're up.
The addition of this 196 homes, there's no way that you can get a street light there. I mean, it's such a dangerous place now, and I'm thinking you're going to have 196 cars coming in and out of there every day. I don't see how that's going to handle that. When you have all those rock trucks, the cement trucks that coming out of Orchard Grass and Bopler Hills, and now this 196 houses. There's no hope for a street light.
Well, like I said, that is possibly one alternative, is to put a traffic signal there. We'll look at that widening. As Mr. Dalton said, we're also, as a county, we've been talking about addressing stormwater issues on the road, the length of Hounds Lane, not just the intersection. So there's a lot of improvements that we can look at immediately to try and, again, keep with the schedule of the developer and potentially have a private-public partnership project. A traffic signal could be an option, but we've not gotten that far yet.
And it's not mandatory that they do that with all that traffic that's going to be going through there. That won't be mandatory that it has a traffic light there.
It does not appear warranted, and again, that is a state route, and Jason Richardson, as I mentioned with KYTC D5, has looked at this, and KYTC is not requiring one. But I agree that as we look forward to how we're going to address this potentially cooperatively, that could be an alternative.
I don't see how the turning lanes are going to help that much with all the traffic that goes on through there every day. With your 22 traffic, and then when all that traffic comes out of Hounds Lane is unreal. Okay.
Yes.
All right, Ms. Davis, anything else? Mr. Miller?
Just a procedural question, Jim.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to use the $300,000 number. I like that number better. The $300,000, will that be given to the county in the form of performance bond or a direct deposit?
Well, we talked about that, and I think they could record a surety. They don't have to. It's really just some mechanism that it's secured that we can capture that if we do have this public-private partnership.
So it would be in the form of a highway-type performance bond or some kind of...
It could be a performance bond. They could write a check for $300,000 to sit in escrow. But like with Sanctuary Falls, Elite Homes wrote performance bonds to the state for the traffic signals to be used later for that construction. So there's several options.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Who else?
I have one other question for you. On the turn situation there at Hounds Lane and 22, is that extra lane going to be put in before they start the construction? Because they're going to have a lot of construction equipment coming in and out now too when they start that development. So that's going to add to it before the development is finished. So what is the timing for putting that extra turn lane in versus starting the construction?
We'll coordinate that with during construction plan review, but typically your construction traffic is not what warrants it. What's warranting that is the build-out traffic. So it doesn't have to be, typically it's not required.
What I was concerned about is most of your construction, or some of your construction, will be bringing trailers in behind trucks, equipment, and so forth. So you're dealing with the longer vehicles trying to come out of there and turn and so forth.
And again, we'll coordinate this with the construction plan review. But a lot of construction traffic, the warrant for that left turn lane is based on peak hours, and a lot of your construction traffic's coming in early or late or in the midday. So it often doesn't figure into the need for that left turn. But we'll work with them on that.
Okay. Mr. Douglas, you up?
I wasn't going to put you on the spot, but I will now. But
Go for it.
Since there was additional testimony, Mrs. Zimmerman's not here to cross-examine, but I'm sure you've read her report.
No, it's been a while, but
Been a while. I guess with this proposal, she pretty much states that the level of service goes to F. And the mitigating factor would be the left turn lane. So when we have things that decreases the level of services, and we're speculating the proposal somewhere down the line to make this left turn lane. I'm just a little concerned on how to make that decision. I know we can put it in the binding element that nothing gets built or something gets built, partially gets built,
well,
in order to the level of service not to be at F.
What's being presented is that the left turn lane, which is being proposed to address that level of service, be built no matter what.
Right.
The question is when it gets built, and does it get built in cooperation with the county project? So it will get built.
And as it stands right now, KYTC did not sign off on this.
Well, they've not approved construction plans, I don't think, but they were coordinated with and provided their recommendation. So they agreed with the left turn lane.
Okay. And you're suffice with the binding element that was presented to us?
We worded it together, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Douglas, you good? Okay, who else has questions? Mr. Fisher, please.
I just have a couple questions. One is, since we're on the traffic impact study, the copy I have on page 8, I know Mr. Swansburg said that the turning lane was not warranted on Hounds Lane, but the last sentence there on conclusion says, the volume warrant for turn lanes is met, not met for the entrance on Hounds Lane. I just want to confirm that that traffic study does indeed read that turn lanes are not warranted from Hounds Lane.
That's the way we understood it.
Because it says the mitigation for the condition of the F, which, you know, Mr. Douglas just alluded to, is the construction of an eastbound left turn lane on Kentucky 22. But then the very next sentence says, the volume warrant for turn lanes is met, not met for the entrance on Hounds Lane. So I think she just forgot to delete the one she doesn't want to use. I just want to make sure that.
I'm going to double check my copy.
Okay.
That's the only reason why she's not here. That's one of my questions.
The other question I had for maybe Mr. Swansburg is, what is the timeline of the approvals that you have to go through in Metro? And have you all started that, or where's that at in the timetable of things?
The short answer is yes, we have started that, and Ms. Linares can speak better to that. She's actually worked with them. But the short answer is yes, we have started it, but in many ways, I believe their action is contingent upon Oldham County's decision, because the overwhelming bulk of the project is in Oldham County, but I'll let Ms. Linares confirm that.
And I'm asking because I didn't know if we would want to form a binding element that the approval is dependent upon Metros. If you get denied in Metro, does that mean the project is scrapped, or you just do the side in And I'm just what ifing.
I mean, well, presumably you would not have two buildings on that development plan there with the rest of them, or the roadway could, but if you want to, I mean,
Obviously, if we were turned down in Jefferson County, then it would be an election to delete those two buildings from the plan and keep it as it is, or come back with something different.
And I guess the reason why I ask that is because our first binding element is the approval applies only to the plan presented today that includes the two buildings in Metro. So I don't know if maybe we should frame a binding element to state that includes the contingency of the Metro approval. Sure. That makes sense.
If you still want to know, right now we are tentatively set to be heard at the Development Review Committee on November 5th. And if this action is delayed, then they will delay that meeting to the following meeting, which it meets twice a month, pretty much on the second and fourth Wednesday, I believe it is.
That answers the question of the notice I received in the mail the other day then, and I was like, what is this for Metro? So that now answers that question for me.
Congratulations. Thank you. So thinking out loud, and this may be a question for Mr. Baxter, is your request about a specific proposed binding element with regard to approval by Jefferson County, by definition, if they deny it, then this plan could not go forward as presented. So we would have to come back anyway. So my question is whether we need to specifically spell that out, or is that incorporated by reference in the existing binding element that it is contingent upon the plan that is presented today?
It has to comply with all state.
Mm-hmm.
I would think by operation of law, if you get denied in Jefferson County, this plan can't work because there's no access to the back part. I mean, you could build the building in the front and the pool, maybe the two buildings in the front and the pool. I'm sure that the people who live there would love that. That'd be nice. But you couldn't get to what? Four buildings in the back. You know, you wouldn't be able to get to them.
So I guess from from the developer's perspective, as a practical matter, I think I would say that it's probably already incorporated by reference that it's contingent upon approval of the entire plan by both counties. And if not, to the extent that there are revisions to the plan, which there would have to necessarily be, just like any other plan revision that we might have that's approved by this body, we would have to come back and resubmit a revised proposal that incorporated a lack of approval by Jefferson County if that were the case.
All right, commissioners, other questions? All right, Mr. Silliman?
Well, I'm trying to link this data just to give you a definite answer.
Right. So just with respect to the verbiage that Mr. Fisher called into question.
Right.
Right. So
there's an apparent typo, and right now I'm not 100% sure how to correct that. I didn't write the report.
Mm-hmm.
The data states that by providing this left turn lane, it reduces the level of service or improves it to a level of service C. So that's what we're basing our previous discussions on.
Understood. All right, that helps. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Anyone else questions, commissioners? All right. So, Mr. Swansburg, rebuttal.
I'm not sure there's a whole lot in terms of rebuttal. I think we addressed a lot of the issues or concerns that were raised by both the members and members of the public. I do think, again, when we talk about the plan is going to have to meet all the requirements during construction phase for stormwater retention, your sewers, for example, your pump stations, all that good stuff is going to have to be met as part of the construction phase anyway. So I do think that that issue is going to be mitigated or meted out, if you will, as part of that particular process. And we understand, of course, that there are concerns about the traffic at that intersection of Hounds Lane and KY22, which is why, again, I'll reiterate that we spent 7 months working with various governmental agencies to come up with a solution that we believe at the end of the day is going to move forward in addressing that issue. Is it a perfect solution? No, the perfect solution would be that everyone's got the land to do this, everyone's got the money to do this, everyone's got the time to do this, and it gets done tomorrow. That would be the perfect solution, of course. But the reality is that there are a number of contingencies that aren't within the purview of the county or under the control of the developer in some way that are looking to be addressed. And we think at the end of the day that is something that we've talked about ad nauseum, for lack of a better term, about how to get that issue addressed. Whether, for example, there might be a stoplight, for example, at the intersection is also going to be dictated by the state. I think Mr. Silman mentioned that, but I just want to reiterate that, is that a lot of what happens in that intersection is going to be dictated by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet because that route is owned by the state. And so to the extent that the state is going to at some point put in a turn signal there or want to do that, that will be dictated by them and their particular standards and also hopefully by their money. Hopefully that the state actually ends up contributing to that effort. So, but again, that is a concern that we know full well is one that was raised initially, but it is one that this developer, I'll just reiterate, has made a ton of effort to address, both in terms of their time and in terms of their money, which they are willing to put on the table in order to make this to address the situation and to mitigate that issue that exists at that intersection, which again, they didn't create and which does exist and which we are hoping to partner with the county to address in the grand sense. So I think that in terms of all the issues, I've covered more or less everything that may have been addressed for which there might be some rebuttal. But again, I think we've talked a lot about those various issues. There was some discussion about, again, landscaping in the front. Developer talked about what they're willing to do in terms of mitigating the clearing in the front side that borders Hounds Lane, for example, in addition to, of course, planting additional landscaping along the southern and northern borders there, as you can see on that image there on the screen. So again, I think that it's a good plan. This is a good effort for a public-private partnership to make a situation that none of us created to address it in some way. And I would, again, just urge that we support that effort.
Thank you, Mr. Swansberg. And Mr. Russell, do you have any rebuttal to offer? Please come to the podium if so.
Well, I personally would like to see a left-hand turning lane on Hans Lane into the development. It makes more sense because by adding just a left-hand turning lane on 22, you're putting a Band-Aid on a gaping sore. I mean, you really want to do that? Or do you want to actually consider the safety and concern of all the residents that live in that development? And there's Briar Hill, there's Popper Hill, there's Moser Farm that uses that road. There's, we've got a lot of residents that use that county road, and it's going to be overtaxed if you add 196 more units to that problem. So I'm going to ask all of you all to do some soul searching today and come up with the right decision on that. But my position is no.
Thank you. All right. Final statements. Anything else to add, Mr. Russell? Okay. Mr. Swansberg?
Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for your time. I know, again, it's been a long day, and we've added to that long day. I just want to go ahead and put a summary out there for you all for our benefit. In terms of what it is ultimately that we're asking you to do, and again, we're asking you all to approve a preliminary plan for this particular subdivision. I just want to highlight again for you the standard that we're talking about when we're looking at approving a plan like this. and it doesn't meet the subdivision regulations, does it meet those requirements that I highlighted for you earlier, and I would again submit to you that it does. It adheres to the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan and the various subcomponent parts that we've already talked about in terms of compatibility with surrounding uses, development with the existing infrastructure, coordinating transportation improvements, sanitary sewer system, and preserving tree preservation to the extent possible. It does protect and conserve the value of land and the value of the buildings and improvements upon the land, and to minimize the conflicts. Again, this is, we would argue, a good project given the scenario that is in front of us of that land right now and how it might be developed in the best form possible. And then again, provides the most beneficial relationship between the development uses of land and buildings and the circulation of traffic throughout Oldham County. Again, I want to reiterate, this is the culmination of a multiple months long conversation between a developer and multiple government agencies to address a situation that we all know to exist, but quite frankly is only being addressed as of right now by this developer. We talk about all the other people who are using this road, but the only one who's actually agreed to pony up funds to fix it is this developer. And it's because we are trying to provide that most beneficial relationship between the developing uses of the land and the circulation of that traffic that exists in that area. This is a good project. This is a good collaboration between a private entity and the government to address a situation. And there are, again, no requests for any variances, no requests for any waivers, no requests for any changes to the Oldham County zoning map, which I submit to you means there's not really any discretionary function to be performed by this body. And in that vein, I would ask you all to support this particular proposal. Mr. Chairman, again, thank you for everything and for the time that given as part of this consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Swansburg. All right, Mr. Fisher.
All right, on the bottom of page 2, going on to page 3 of your staff report, and hopefully Ms. Barge is putting up her binding elements there so that I can read those when I get to the point. There are a few that I've heard and am going to add and see if the applicant agrees. But at the bottom of page 2, on to page 3, you've got suggested motions there. You did hear the applicant talk about several different objectives from the comprehensive plan as well as the subdivision regulations in his justification for potential approval. The proposed binding elements, you've got the 5 on your screen that Ms. Barge gave us at the beginning. I am going to recommend the first one we change a little bit to incorporate the Metro Louisville language. And so the first binding element would read, the approval applies only to the plan presented at the October 28th, 2025 Oldham County Planning Commission public hearing. This approval will be contingent upon approval in Metro Louisville / Jefferson County, and any changes to the plan will require a new submittal to the Oldham County Planning Commission. Number 2 and 3 remain the same, so there'll be no changes to the plan without review by the Planning Commission and Engineer's Office. The plan shall comply with all established federal, state, and county ordinances and requirements and comply with all necessary easement restrictions at the time of construction plan approval. Number 4 is 75 units per year are allowed per the Oldham County Board of Education for the Oldham County portion of the development. Number 5 is the applicant shall contribute $300,000 towards off-site road improvements at the Hounds Lane and Highway 22 intersection for traffic infrastructure impacted by the development and shall be payable to Oldham County Fiscal Court and due prior to any construction plan approval contingent on a larger county road project. If that county road project cannot be initiated to meet the developer's schedule, the developer will construct a left turn lane immediately.
Independently.
Oh, sorry, independently. Not immediately. Bad, it's been a long day. And then I added 2 others in. One is, this is usually kind of standard in here, but a landscaping and lighting plan will be required to be submitted and approved at staff level prior to construction plan approval. And that one is important because I'm pretty sure these building permits will probably go through the state. And so that's one thing, when those approvals go through the state and the building permit process, sometimes we get left out on the landscaping and lighting plans that will require approval. So we want to make sure that's listed. And then I did put in there about the trees to remain along Hounds Lane. with the exception of clearing brush along that roadway is also a binding element. And that way we can make sure that that's on those landscape plans. So those are the binding elements.
So if I can, just for the record, we don't have an opposition to any of those. The one that I would just ask in terms of maybe a slight modification is the very last one about the trees. I might add in there where practical or where practicable, because there may be, as part of, again, putting the sewer line, and you may have to take out a few trees, or if there's a dead tree or something to that effect, you want to just arbitrarily leave that. So there may be times as part of that effort, again, the developers indicated that it is willing to keep as much of that growth there along Hounds Lane as possible, but there may be, where practicable, times where it has to cut something out. But again, that's not going to be a wholesale cutting. I would ask that to be added as part of that binding element.
All right. So what about trees to remain along Hounds Lane with the exception of clearing of brush along that roadway and any work that may necessitate removal?
I'm sorry, say again. Sorry, I got two people talking to me. Tyler.
So trees to remain along Hounds Lane with the exception of clearing of brush along the roadway and other work that may necessitate removal.
We're good with that.
We're asking if the binding element 5 should be or clarified. Mr. Miller, you mentioned how the 300,000 is contributed. That it could be in a bond. So I think that implies that it's a check or cash. We just want to be clear that it's some form of
Yeah, I think in some previous cases, it's just been escrowed by the county. Isn't the one at Clore Lane in 22, that's money that...
Clore Lane was actually escrowed, but again, Sanctuary Falls was a performance bond.
I mean, escrow would be easier, so if that's okay with the... No, it's just the county is holding the money on. I mean, that relieves you. I mean, if you pay it in, that relieves you of the obligation to worry about it, right? I mean, county's got to apply it to that, and they need to document to you that they've used it for that purpose.
We're good with that.
Okay. All right, anything else?
Not for me.
All right, commissioners. Discussion. Floor is open.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Elder?
As to docket PZ 25-031, I make a motion to approve the development plan because it complies with objectives of LU 1-1 and 1-3 and LU 2-1 and 2-4 of the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, and the subdivision regulations, and by evidence and testimony given today. My motion would include the binding elements as recently read.
Thank you, Mr. Elder. Mr. Baxter?
Mr. Elder, I assume I'm assuming you say that it complies with the regulations, the zoning, the subdivision regulations based upon the testimony you've heard today?
That is correct.
Then we have an adequate motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. We've got a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Miller, thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote. Ms. Edgar?
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
No, due to the situation on the safety issue.
Mr. Allison?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Elder?
Yes.
Ms. Nasser?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Kraus?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Klingenfuss.
Yes.
Thank you. And PZ-25-031 has been approved on a vote of 12 to 1. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Good luck. All right. Hey, guys, we're going to take a 5-minute break here. We're at the home stretch here, guys. All right. We good? All right, Miss Edgar, can you read the next docket item, please?
Docket PZ-25-032. An application has been filed by Jason Hillert, BHDP, and Madison Tucker, Bear Becker, requesting a waiver of the maximum parking regulations on property located at the 2700 block of South Highway 393, Buckner. The property is 1.89 acres and zoned IPD Industrial Park District.
Thank you. And Sandy, you'll have the
Good
staff
afternoon.
presentation.
Sandy Redgroden, Oldham County Planner 1. So this is a property, it's zoned IPD Industrial Park District. The land use is currently undeveloped and it's 1.89 acres. The site history is that in June 1998, the Planning Commission approved a zoning map amendment from I-2 Heavy Industrial to IPD Industrial Park District. On October 16, 2025, Oldham County Board of Adjustments approved a 25-foot street side yard setback variance to allow the drive-through ATM to be located within the 50-foot arterial road setback. The case history is they had a pre-app meeting on February 27th. Technical Review Committee was August 20th, 2025. It was posted to the web planning website on September 26th. Board of Adjustments was on October 16th. Adjoining property owners were noticed on October 10th, and public notice appeared in the Oldham Era on October 9th, 2025. So here's an aerial of the property right here. You can see this is an old GIS map, but right here is the Kroger and the McDonald's and the new Starbucks right in this area right here. Wawa is going in right here. They were required at technical review to have the entries line up between the Chase Bank and the Wawa, and then there's an easement going back to this trucking facility. Not 100% sure what they do there. Here is the zoning. It's surrounded by quite a bit of different types of zoning. You got your C3, CO1, PUD, and I2. So the notes, the applicant is proposing a new bank with a drive-through ATM at the corner of Highway 393 and Commerce Parkway. According to the Oldham County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance 280-070, banks and related financial institutions should have a maximum of one space for each 200 square feet of gross floor area. The proposed gross floor area will be 3,432 feet. Based on the regulations, the maximum number of parking spaces allowed is 18 spaces. So the applicant is requesting 28 parking spaces, 10 spaces beyond the requirements. The applicant calculated the number of spaces required by using a corporate formula, which I'm sure they're going to explain to you how they come up with that. And below that is the ordinance where you see the maximum number allowed is 1 square foot for each 200 square feet of gross floor space. Here is the property, the overall property you see right here. Here's their entrance, and then here's where the Wawa is going to be located, and they're aligned there in that easement that goes back to the trucking company right there. And then it'll move around here. I have a closer up, which I'll get to. This is a drive-through ATM, and these are the parking spaces. Okay, so you see here is a closer up of where the parking spaces are going to be. The drive-through ATM where it's partially in the setback, and then they go around here and you go out this way. Here is a closer up aerial of the property, and again, Wawa will be going right here. This is where Kroger is on this corner. This is a view from Highway 393 towards Commerce Parkway, and then a view from Commerce Parkway towards Highway 393. In summary, an application has been filed requesting a waiver of the maximum parking regulations on property located at the 2700 block of South Highway 393 in Buckner. It hasn't been addressed yet, so that's why it's being referred to as the 2700 block. The max allowed spaces per the ordinance are 18 parking spaces. The proposed parking spaces, 28. The waiver request is for 10 additional parking spaces. Potential condition of approval, the waiver shall only apply to the plan reviewed at the October 28th, 2025 Planning Commission public hearing. Questions?
All right. Mr. Silliman, anything from you on this? Okay. All right, questions for Sandy? Seeing none. All right. We'll move into presentation from applicant.
Tanner Nichols, 400 West Market, Louisville, Kentucky, counsel for the applicant team. I'll let Madison, James, and Ken introduce themselves, and we can all be sworn in at the same time to answer questions if you may have them.
Terrific. Let's go ahead and swear you in.
James Hillard. James Hillard.
Madison Tucker with Bear Becker.
Ken Coliander, Chase Bank.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
So, obviously here tonight, we're mostly, or today, right, to answer questions that you all may have. We're asking for 10 additional spaces based upon the required parking. How do I explain this? I was sitting there thinking the best way to explain it maybe would be like, I've been told that churches don't build for their average, they kind of build for the big days, right? Easter and Christmas. And so the banks and commercial enterprises, many times, what we don't want to happen, what the bank doesn't want to happen is on one particular day, one or two cars come in and not be able to park. And based upon their business experience operating these types of locations all over the country, to be fair, they probably better know how many spaces they need. And for this location, they need 28 spaces. And that's why we're asking for the waiver. And we're here to answer questions that you may have.
All right. Anything else to add? Okay. Protocol. Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Seeing none, we'll move into questions from the commissioners. Commissioners, who has questions? Mr. Douglas?
A simple one. So fill in the blank for me.
Okay.
Strict compliance with the regulations, the parking regulations, will create what type of hardship? What type of hardship for those 10 extra spaces? I know you said...
they would have to redesign this for sure, and then they would have to make internal business decisions that don't go with their general corporate compliance for their operations. Thank you.
Mr. Douglas, anything else? Anyone else with questions? Could have been. Ms. Krause, go ahead.
So what algorithm or calculation did you use? Did you just take all across the country, here's what it typically takes, or the number of accounts you have in this area?
I don't know the specific algorithms, but yes, they generally take the geographic location, the number of accounts, honestly, what's the term I'm looking for? How wealthy the county is and how wealthy the location is based upon nearby traffic counts. And so I'm sure it's probably proprietary in some ways, some of the information that they use to calculate their parking.
In our reasoning as well, it's listed based on like the amount of teller spaces they have, the amount of office spaces. They usually have like a conference room inside. So it's all based on as well as those items, but the size of the building itself and the amount of employees and how many people they could expect coming on a general day.
So do you know what that compares with your competitors in this area? Because I'm just trying to go through my head about the number of spaces I've seen in several different banks and just trying to understand that.
No, it's not in relative to other banks. Their internal calculations are based upon their own operations.
Okay, anything else? Okay, commissioners? Mr. Allen, go ahead.
I guess this is a question for Mr. Silliman. I assume 10 additional parking spaces equals 10 additional spaces of asphalt footprint. So what is the impact on the drainage?
Yeah, so we actually, that question was asked, Mr. Douglas actually asked us a couple days ago what the impervious area was, and I believe was the answer 38%? 30, and I checked that, and that was correct. So they're below the maximum impervious surface, and any effect, to answer your question, the effect that has on stormwater will be calculated into their detention calculations. They show a proposed detention basin, and we'll figure that impervious surface into that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Miller, did you have a question?
Yeah, just real quickly, has there been any options looked at in terms of building out part of the parking spaces? You've got 6 spaces that are on the far west side of the lot. Has there been any thought given to building the first 22 spaces and then leaving the other space open for future development?
There has not been.
Thank you.
All right, further questions, commissioners? All right, seeing none. Mr. Nichols, we're at the point where we don't have any opposition testimony, so I'm not going to ask you to rebut, but I am going to ask you for a final statement.
Thank you for a long day. We appreciate all the work you've done. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fisher, you're up.
All right, so on page 2 of your staff report, you have suggested motions to approve or deny the waiver. Mr. Douglas has already done his fill-in-the-blank exercise to talk about, based on evidence and testimony, and whether or not the applicant proved that they have an undue hardship in this matter or not. You did have one potential condition of approval, that the waiver shall only apply to the plan reviewed at the October 28th, 2025 Planning Commission public hearing. I do think we need to add one more in there, and I don't remember if this was in the Board of Adjustments case or not, but that a landscape lighting plan and site plan shall be required to be submitted to staff for approval prior to building plan approval. So that's usually a fairly standard one that we have. So as long as they're in agreement, which are all shaking their heads yes, so it must have sounded good. Add that one in as well.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Commissioners, questions, discussion, motions? Ms. Nasser.
I'll throw one in today. I make a motion to approve docket PZ-25-032 based on testimony and evidence presented today for the waiver of 10 additional parking spaces, seeing as it does not have it still complies with the regulations, as well as does not cause more impervious surface concerns or issues. I do want to include the 2 binding elements agreed upon and stated by Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Ms. Nasser. Mr. Baxter.
You have an adequate motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Elder, thank you. Discussion. You guys had enough? We'll move into a roll call vote. Ms. Edgar.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Elder.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Mr. Hampton.
Yes.
Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Klingenfuss.
Yes.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Ms. Nasser.
Yes.
Ms. Jones.
Yes.
Ms. Davis.
Yes.
Ms. Kraus.
Yes.
Ms. Graham.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Edgar. And PZ-25-032 has been approved on a vote 13-0. Thank you all. Okay.
I think we'll start with a special guest presentation here before we get into the election of
I'm
new
afraid
officers.
you're not on the docket, sir.
I'm not on the docket, but I have a way of, I guess, whatever. Pulling rank or wearing people out or whatever. Haven't spoken to the Planning Commission too many times in the last several years, but thank all of you for your service here today. I haven't been generally aware of what's been going on, but haven't listened closely to all the arguments. And I know all of us have learned about data centers. A year ago, most of us couldn't really define what it was or didn't know what a particularly hyper data center was, but I think we've all learned and have moved our community forward to deal with it in the future. I don't know what happened at lunch today, or if any of you are aware, maybe all of you are aware, but certainly our public is not aware that on October 28th, 1998, Greg King joined the Oldham County Planning Commission. We have a lot of great public servants in our community. Some are paid, many are not paid, but they volunteer their time to help bring our community forward, make it the best it could be. It's rare indeed to find someone who is able and willing to spend nearly 3 decades working in public service in our community. Greg King is such a person. Over this period of time, 28 years on the Planning Commission, Greg has brought a trusted voice, a vision and wisdom, leadership, and good example to many other people who have served on this commission who have come and gone. Greg is still here, but today's his last day, and we're sorry about that. Greg has done a great job of balancing the preservation that we want in our community with the progress that's come our way. Life is a forward-moving event. Things happen. Sometimes it's not so much the pace of change, change, but the pace of change. We all are used to what we're used to, and we like it, and sometimes have to be dragged forward a little bit. But during this time, the Planning Commission has dealt with many issues, and Greg has been a trusted voice here and a leader in our community. So on behalf of myself, our fiscal court, and everybody in this community, I want to acknowledge Greg King. Thank you with our deepest gratitude for the service that you have provided. Now, I did bring something. I brought a garbage bag, but I don't have garbage in the bag, okay? I'm going to unveil it here now. We do have an award that we give out rarely, but we give it out. It's a miniature statue of Colonel William Oldham, the same statue that's on the courthouse lawn. And this statue is entitled The Spirit of Oldham County. So for today, I'm very proud and pleased to be able to present this statue on behalf of our community to Greg King for what he's done. Greg, will you come down?
Thank you, Judge. I'm honored.
Good idea. All right. There you go, Greg. Yeah, Judge. You're not kidding.
Use some help to the car with this.
Right. Thank you. All right. It's that statue is kind of heavy. It's when you hand it to them, it's one of those that. So, thank you, Greg. Best wishes to you on behalf of all of us. We really appreciate you. Thank you. And I appreciate everybody who's sitting here. It's not easy to make some of these decisions. they're put on you, and you have to think about what you're going to do, and the decisions you make move our community forward. So thanks to all of you as well.
Thank you for making time for us, Judge. All right. What an honor. All right, guys. So, about ready to head for the exits? We got one more piece of work to do here, okay? So it's time to open the floor for nomination of officers. So at this time, it's my privilege to open the floor for nominations for chair. Ms. Davis?
It's my pleasure to nominate Katie Nazer for our new commissioner.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Chairperson.
All right. And anyone else? With this in mind, we can do this by voice vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. You have a new chair, guys. Woo-hoo. The chair is yours. Okay. Want to wrestle for it? Okay. All right.
Don't run off.
Oh, really?
First, thank you. To everyone, thank you. But I have big shoes to fill. There's been several people in this chair prior that have served for a very long time and done very well for this community, and you have absolutely done that. So.
Thank you, Ms. Nasser. You guys are in good hands, I want you to know.
Now I want to open the floor for nominations for vice chair. We have a nomination for William Douglas. Do I have any other nominations? William, are you interested? You interested? Sure. Okay. Seeing no other nominations, we'll do this by voice vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? William Douglas, welcome to the...
So we do have a meeting. Keep in mind, though, this November, that's the one where we combine the November and December meeting. So it's a Tuesday that you all aren't usually familiar with. So I believe it's December 9th is the meeting. So our filing deadline is not until tomorrow, but I believe we do already have a case. So plan on being here December 9th, which is the second Tuesday of the month, not our normal meeting date. And then I just want to take this opportunity to thank Greg as well. For his service. It's not very often that when we try to figure out how long someone has served that we have to really go into the books. There was dust flying yesterday in those old books to try to figure out his starting date. So I'm very thankful for his service and appreciative of being able to work with him. So thank you very much.
All right. Any other order of business? Nope. He still gets to ask questions. All right, seeing no other orders of business, the meeting is adjourned.